For context, my wife and I have been together for more than a decade. In that time, her family has been awesome. The only exceptions to this are my wife's paternal aunt and uncle. The two have a tendency to do really odd things and then act like it was normal. For instance, a few years ago, they stood up during the middle of a family dinner, raised their hands like a referee holding up a champion boxer's hand, and announced that they were moving to the lake, before sitting down. No mention of which lake this was, no additional context, nothing. After what felt like an eternity, as we all stared at each other awkwardly, my wife's father asked, "Which lake?" which prompted his sister to begin crying her eyes out and screeching about how we weren't being supportive. More recently, my wife and I bought a house in the same city as her parents, and so, for the first time, we decided to host Christmas. The grandparents and parents are getting old, and we thought it would be a nice gesture. We made sure to send the invites a month in advance and followed up by text message with everyone who said they were coming. The only thing we asked was that people not bring their pets. My wife has absolutely terrible dog allergies, to her own dismay, as she desperately wants to foster a dog, and her aunt and uncle have a history of doing things like showing up with a literal pack of dogs they happen to be pet-sitting last minute for. The email was very clear on this. Cue Christmas Day, and my wife's aunt and uncle showing up 2 hours late with their brand new Mastiff. When I opened the door, the dog started going nuts and howling, while her uncle scolded it to stop. I tried to politely explain that this wasn't acceptable and that they needed to leave, but my wife's aunt started crying and screaming about how mean I was being. Eventually, they left, but on the day of, and for the last few weeks since, I've gotten mixed reactions from family and friends. I'm not on Facebook, but apparently my wife's aunt made a long post about how we ruined Christmas by forcing them to drive 2 hours for Christmas dinner, only to turn them away heartlessly because they didn't feel comfortable leaving their new dog at home alone. Our immediate family is supportive. Both of my wife's grandmas thought the scene was hilarious, apparently, and my in-laws thought it was nice to finally see someone stand up to the Looney Tunes duo. Their term, not mine, but think we should have found a way to allow them to stay even with the dog. The other aunts, uncles, and cousins think we went too far and should have compromised somehow. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, so I have to ask, am I the jerk? Edit. It has been pointed out that my spelling of bawling was incorrect. It has been fixed. 2. There are a number of folks wanting to know more about the lake. I was trying to not tell this story, since it would bias things towards them looking even crazier, and I wanted the Christmas dinner situation to be judged fairly on its own. But here's the deal. My wife's aunt and uncle have always wanted to own a lake house. They literally had framed photos and posters all around their house of different lakefront properties. We all knew this for years. What we didn't know was that they were actively looking, nor did we know they had put an offer on the one that, in their minds, was their dream lake house. However, they believed that they had been keeping everyone in the loop. This meant, when they stood up and triumphantly announced their success, they thought we were going to cheer and congratulate them. So when my wife's dad asked which lake, it was like him, and everyone else by extension, forgetting about not giving a damn about them achieving their dream. After my wife's aunt calmed down, we finally got them both to explain why they were so upset. Except they couldn't provide any documentation of having told anyone. They hadn't spoken to anyone in the family by phone since before they put the offer in. They also didn't have any text messages, emails, or even Facebook posts showing they had told us. What we gathered by the end was that they had told a mutual family friend and somehow expected us to know by extension. So yeah, there's the story of the lake. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Ignore the aunts, uncles, and cousins. You were clear. You put your wife's health above them. Good job. That's what is supposed to happen. I mean, I know we told everyone the rules, but let's make an exception since you showed up explicitly to challenge them. Next year, don't host. As they say, no good deed goes unpunished. Comment 2. Not the idiot. They are huge rude jerks. Your invite was clear. They chose to ignore your house rules. They got sent home. They ruined their own Christmas by their rude and entitled behavior. They do not get to make the rules for your home. You safeguarded your wife's health. You are a hero. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post about the Christmas mess with my wife's aunt and uncle. Buckle up, because this update is a rough ride. Remember how my wife's aunt and uncle brought their new Mastiff to our No Pets Allowed Christmas dinner? Well, after they left our house that day, things escalated quickly. They didn't just go home, they drove straight to my in-laws' place. They showed up unannounced, dog in tow, and demanded to stay the night because they were too upset to drive home. My in-laws, being the kind-hearted people they are, let them in, but not without some serious eye-rolling. Now, my in-laws have a cat, Whiskers, who's basically the queen of the house. She's been with the family for nearly 15 years and doesn't take kindly to other animals invading her space. So you can imagine the chaos that ensued when a massive mastiff barged in. Whiskers went into full-on attack mode, and the dog, startled and confused, knocked over a family heirloom vase. It shattered into a million pieces, and my wife's aunt burst into tears again. The next day, my wife's aunt and uncle left, but not before leaving a passive-aggressive note about how family should support family, no matter what. My in-laws were fuming, and that's when they decided to share a little-known fact about the aunt and uncle's past. Apparently, they have a history of borrowing money from family members and never paying it back. They even took a loan from my wife's grandparents to help with the down payment for their supposed lake house. Fast forward to last week, and we get a call from my wife's cousin, who's pretty close to the aunt and uncle. She tells us that they never actually bought a lake house. They had been scammed out of their money by a fake real estate agent and were too embarrassed to admit it. That's why they were so sensitive about the lake incident at dinner years ago. They had been living in a fantasy, pretending they owned a lake house to cope with the loss and shame. But wait, there's more. My wife's aunt and uncle had been trying to save face by renting a small cabin near a lake every few months and inviting friends over, pretending it was theirs. They even took photos and hung them up at home to sell the lie. It was a house of cards waiting to collapse. Now, let's talk about the mastiff. Turns out, it wasn't even theirs. They were dog-sitting for a friend and thought bringing the dog to our house would somehow make up for their lack of a real pet, as they had always wanted a big dog, but could never afford one due to their financial troubles. The confrontation happened yesterday. My wife and I were visiting her parents when the aunt and uncle showed up, uninvited, yet again. This time, they wanted to clear the air. They started with a half-hearted apology, but quickly shifted to blaming everyone else for not understanding their situation. My wife, who's usually the peacemaker, had had enough. She called them out on their lies, the money they owed, and the stress they'd caused the family. It was a scene straight out of a soap opera, with shouting, crying, and dramatic exits. But here's the juicy twist. As they were leaving, my wife's uncle dropped his wallet and out spilled several receipts from a local jeweler. My wife picked them up and saw that they were for a very expensive necklace and bracelet set. The dates on the receipts were just a few days before Christmas. We were all stunned. How could they afford such lavish jewelry when they were supposedly broke and in debt? My wife's aunt saw the receipts in my wife's hand and snatched them back, her face red with anger and embarrassment. They stormed out, and we haven't heard from them since. But now we're left with more questions than answers. Where did the money for the jewelry come from? Are they hiding more secrets? And what will happen next in this family saga? Mill grabbed my baby and demanded photos, but I told her to remove them from Facebook. Now she's not allowed to hold baby. I, female 29, had my first baby 3 months ago. From literally the time my baby was born, my significant other's parents were non-stop visiting. I was in the hospital for 48 hours due to a C-section and had his divorced parents and their significant others visit multiple times each. My issue began here with his father's significant other, whom we'll call Jane. For context, Jane made no effort to reach out during the entire pregnancy and only ever texted me once the morning of the scheduled C-section. Immediately upon entering the hospital room, Jane runs over to the bassinet and grabs my few-hour-old baby from it without asking or even washing her hands. I was beyond exhausted and out of it at the time, so I didn't say anything, which I regret. Fast forward to the next 6 weeks. They constantly wanted to visit. When they did visit, they wanted to sit there, hold my baby, and take photos. Jane would show up with gifts for the baby and my significant other, but nothing for me. She never offered to help with anything or bring coffee or food. Nothing. I log onto Facebook one morning after they had visited, and Jane had posted photos of my baby, blabbering on about how Nana loves her, and proceeds to give an inaccurate birth date in the comments. I tell my partner that this bothered me, as she did not ask permission to post photos of our baby online, and I would like them removed. Jane makes a huge stink over the matter, saying she's being targeted and that everyone else can post but her. I explain my stance, and somehow it blew up into her feeling like she only has the title of a grandparent, but can't do the duties of one because I wouldn't let her change my baby's diaper. His father doesn't seem to get where I'm coming from either, but my significant other told him that Jane needs to apologize and understand that there are boundaries that need to be respected. It has now been well over a month, and the holidays have come and gone. I haven't heard a peep from them since until this week, when she passed along Christmas gifts to my significant other. There were 5 gifts, 1 made out to my significant other, 1 to our baby, and the other 3 were made out to his sister and her boyfriend. I immediately knew she did this, so I would see that she gave everyone a gift except me, as she had seen his sister the weekend before and could have given her the gifts. I know she has met the sister's boyfriend twice, yet he gets gifts, but not the mother of the baby she loves so much. I sat on it for a day and thought about it all, and decided that I have received nothing but disrespect from her from the beginning, and that I was 1, saying she isn't welcome in our house again, and 2, she isn't welcome to hold our baby. Am I the jerk for saying she is no longer welcome at our home, and she isn't welcome to hold our baby? Update. Jane reached out to me to apologize for not including me in the gifts, and admitted it was intentional because she didn't like that she was being treated differently than our biological mothers. I told Jane that my boundaries have not changed, and if they ever were to, it would have to be on the grounds that I had a relationship with her and received basic respect as the baby's mother. Jane proceeded to argue that she needs to be treated the same as our biological mothers and wants to be able to change my baby's diaper. I have since not replied after multiple messages going back and forth, reiterating my stance and boundaries, and Jane trying to argue them rather than accept them. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. I remember a school friend had her baby when she was quite young. When I visited her in the hospital, I took clothes for the newborn, but I also took my friend's favorite lavender soaps and hand cream for herself. She started crying when she opened the gifts, so I asked her why, and she said, "Because everyone brought things for the baby, but nothing for me. You're the only one who brought something for me." She wasn't being selfish or egocentric, she just felt a little overlooked and unloved. Comment 2. Absolutely not the idiot. Everything you've been saying about how Jane has been treating you makes my skin crawl. Why some people think they can utterly disrespect the mother of a baby and still get access to that baby is insane to me. Has your partner been standing up for you against Jane? If he hasn't, he needs to start. You setting these new boundaries is the perfect opportunity. It's his family, so he needs to deal with them. Edit, changed husband to partner. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update on the Jane situation. It's been a week since I last posted, and let me tell you, things have been heating up. So after I laid down the law with Jane about not being welcome in our home or holding the baby, she reached out to apologize. She admitted she left me out of the gifts on purpose because she felt slighted. She thought she wasn't being treated the same as our biological moms. I was taken aback by her honesty, but it didn't change how I felt. I told her my boundaries are firm, and if they were ever to change, it would have to be because we had a relationship built on mutual respect. Jane didn't take that well. She messaged me, trying to argue that she deserved the same treatment as the biological grandmothers. She even said she should have the right to change my baby's diaper. I couldn't believe she was still on about that. I haven't replied to her since those messages. I've been sticking to my guns, but she's been relentless, sending message after message, trying to get me to budge. Now, let's rewind a bit to give you some more context. Jane has always had a competitive streak, especially with my significant other's mom. They've had a rocky relationship, and it seems like Jane has been trying to one-up her at every turn. It's like she's been using my baby to get back at her for past slights. It's all been a power play for her, and I'm not about to let my child be a pawn in her game. Back to the present, my significant other's dad has been trying to play peacemaker. He called us up, wanting to talk things out. He said he understood where I was coming from, but also wanted to find a middle ground. He suggested a family meeting without Jane to clear the air. I agreed, thinking it might help. The meeting was intense. My significant other's mom, who's always been supportive, shared stories of her own struggles with Jane. She told us how Jane had tried to overshadow her at family events, and even went as far as to accidentally spill wine on her at a wedding. It was clear that Jane's behavior wasn't just about me or the baby, it was a pattern. After hearing all this, my significant other's dad seemed to get it. He apologized for not seeing the full picture and promised to talk to Jane. He asked us what we thought would be a fair compromise. I was firm that Jane needed to respect our boundaries, but I was willing to let her visit if she could behave appropriately. A couple of days later, Jane sent a long message. She said she had done some thinking and realized she had been out of line. She promised to respect our rules and asked if she could start by just being present during visits. No holding the baby, just being in the same room. It was a big step for her, and I had to give her credit for that. We decided to give it a try. The first visit was awkward, to say the least. Jane sat on the couch, hands to herself, while we all chatted. She kept glancing at the baby, and I could tell it was ending the life of her not to hold him. But she kept her word, and the visit went by without incident. After she left, my significant other and I talked it over. We agreed that while it was a good first step, we'd need to see consistent respect from Jane before we could even think about letting her hold the baby again. Just when we thought things might be settling down, Jane threw us another curveball. She showed up unannounced the next day with a peace offering, a handmade blanket for the baby. It was a nice gesture, but it was also a clear test of our boundaries. We let her in, but I reminded her that surprise visits weren't okay. She nodded, looking a bit embarrassed, and handed over the blanket. "I just wanted to show that I'm serious about making things right," she said. We thanked her for the blanket, but reiterated that we needed to stick to the agreed-upon rules. I show up to my friend's house at 10 p.m. on New Year's Eve, despite being told to come later because dinner is still going on. And now he's embarrassed and blaming me and my girlfriend for what happened. My best friend Jay organizes a New Year's Eve party at his mom's house, and my girlfriend Kay and I are invited. He tells us to come at 10 p.m. They host a family dinner before, and some friends of Jay's sister M are invited. We went there with Kay and my friend P, and brought a bottle of vodka. At 9:45 p.m, Jay tells us to arrive later because dinner is still going. But we're almost there after 1 hour of public transport, so we still arrive at 10 p.m. The dessert isn't served. Main dish is left over on the table. People are not eating anymore. We greet everyone, and Jay brings some chairs for us to sit at the table. P goes to the garden for a smoke. Kay and I sit next to M's friends. They serve us some wine, and we talk for a bit. One of them asks if we want some of the leftover duck in front of us. I decline, saying we already ate beforehand. They ask us again 4 times, and I end up accepting. I tell Kay to try some, as I know Jay's mom's Peking duck is very tasty. We each eat around 4 slices. Meanwhile, 2 of my friends arrive and smoke outside waiting for dinner to end. Then, Jay's mom sits to have a toast with M's friend, and I ask for a glass. I didn't know, but it is a premium wine a friend of M brought as a gift. I brought a bottle too. I thought it was fine. Around 11 p.m, some family members leave. There are only M's friends, our friends, 2 cousins and us. Our friends are sitting on the other side of the table. One cousin is a pastry chef. He brought a handmade king cake. They cut the cake, and some get a slice, including P. 2 of our friends decline. Karaoke starts. We sing for a bit. There are still 3 slices of king cake left. I want to ask for one. I tell Kay. She says, "I got it. Follow me." However, once next to the plate, she notices she's in front of the TV displaying the karaoke. So she proceeds to directly take the plate in front of M, brushes her without noticing, and brings it next to my friends. We sit down to eat a slice each. Just after we finish eating, M comes and says, "It was for family only." We both are feeling so ashamed. When I saw Kay take the plate, I found it a bit strange, but nothing alarming. When I finally get to talk to Jay, I apologize for the king cake. He tells me smiling that Kay and I are stupid, and we move on. The party keeps going and ends without trouble. 2 weeks later, I get to see Jay, without Kay, for the first time since New Year's Eve. He tells me he never felt so ashamed to invite friends. His family saw us eating duck, but his mom didn't invite us to eat it. She was a bit angry that I asked to toast with her and M's friends, and the king cake was the cherry on top. We didn't ask and stole it. He says his family will laugh at him for years because of this. He says he never wants to see Kay again, and he's really disappointed in me. I apologized for the king cake, but not for the duck nor the toast, as I feel like neither Kay nor I made a mistake here. Kay wants to write an apology letter along with a gift for this incident, but is waiting for my approval. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. First of all, do not use initials. It is irksome. Second of all, do not ask for a glass if you are not offered one. Third, they were rude too. You arrived no earlier than invited. Kay should have asked you to sit elsewhere, not in front of food you were not supposed to eat. It was a little ungracious of the mom to flip out over some duck, but you seemed to have eaten quite a lot of it, so that might be why. Everyone sucks here. Comment 2. I do not know if there is a cultural difference, and maybe you guys were a little off base. I cannot tell from the story, but I genuinely cannot imagine inviting someone to a party, having food and drink available, and not offering it to my guests. Really, his family should be embarrassed for their poor hosting skills, not the idiot. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been 2 weeks since the New Year's Eve mess at Jay's place, and boy, do I have an update for you. Buckle up because this one's a doozy. So after the party, Kay and I were mortified. We knew we messed up with the king cake, but we thought the rest of the night went okay. We were wrong. Jay finally had a chance to talk to me alone, and he laid it all out. He said his family was still fuming over us eating the duck and joining in the toast with the premium wine. And the king cake? That was just the icing on the disaster cake. Turns out, Jay's mom had been planning that dinner for weeks. The duck was her specialty, and she only made enough for her guests, which didn't include us. When we started helping ourselves, she was silently seething. And the wine? It was a rare vintage from M's friend's family vineyard, meant to be savoured by the adults, not us kids. But here's where things get really spicy. Remember P, who went out for a smoke? Well, he wasn't just smoking. He was making out with one of M's friends in the garden. And not just any friend, but the one who brought the wine. When they were caught, it caused a huge scene, and now M's friend won't even talk to P. As for Kay and me, we thought we could smooth things over with an apology letter and a gift. Kay had her heart set on it, but I was hesitant. I didn't want to stir the pot even more. But Kay insisted, so we sent over a heartfelt letter and a bottle of nice wine. Not as nice as the one I accidentally drank, but still decent. You'd think that would help, right? Wrong. Jay's mom took it as an insult, like we were trying to buy our way out of trouble. She told Jay that the letter was pretentious, and the wine tasted like vinegar compared to what they usually drink. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Jay dropped another bombshell. His cousin, the pastry chef who made the king cake, was so offended by our theft that he's refusing to bake for Jay's upcoming birthday. The family is blaming us for ruining what was supposed to be a special celebration. Now, Jay's family is giving him the cold shoulder, and he's taking it out on us. He told me that he's been the butt of jokes at every family gathering since New Year's. His aunts and uncles keep asking if he's going to invite the duck thieves to the next event. But here's the kicker, the subtle twist of fate that's left me shaking my head. Remember the 2 friends who declined the king cake? They ended up getting food poisoning from something they ate earlier that night. If they had eaten the cake, they would have been spared the misery. It's like the universe was making a point about greed and taking what's not offered. Jay's now saying he doesn't want Kay at any more gatherings, and he's disappointed in me. I've apologized for the king cake incident, but I still don't think we did anything wrong with the duck or the toast. Kay's upset and doesn't know what to do. She's been crying and saying she just wanted to make things right. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.